Welcome, everybody, to a brand new episode of the Evil Safety Dudes. I am your host, Mr. Aaron Iacino, the Director of Risk Management for IBC. This is our podcast where we talk about anything and everything that has to do with employee safety and security. I'm always trying to come up with new examples. So I'm actually going to bring in my guest, Mr. Tim Higgins. He is the technical expert for utilities for McClure Engineering. How are you doing today, sir?
Pretty good.
Help me come up with some weird hazards. How not to, I'll take one from your job. How not to get collapsed in a trench to, what's something else that kills people at work?
Confined space.
Okay, or how not to
Die in a confined space.
Yes, there you go. So this is some pretty big topics, and we talk about it all. Anything to do with employee safety, health, security. And I'm excited to have you on the show, man. How you been?
Good. Thanks for having me.
It's been a while since we hung out. I think the first time we met was you were working with the city.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, utilities there too, yeah?
Yep, I was a utility superintendent then.
Yeah, that's cool. And we did a lot of work together there, and you were doing some training for him too. I think you were doing some CPR training for him, weren't you?
I was doing CPR training and some other stuff because I also took on the role of being the safety manager for the city as well.
That's really cool, man. And now you're with McClure Engineering Company. And what are you guys doing there?
Well, we're a civil engineering company, so I mean we cover pretty much anything to do with civil engineering. You know, water, wastewater, transportation, development, structural, aviation, survey.
That's cool. I was studying some history of safety, like the safety trade.
Okay.
And this one historian traced its origins back to civil engineering.
Sure.
I
guess that kind of makes sense.
One of the avenues, like how you design streets, because the streets poorly designed are like killing everybody, auto accidents. And so we got to, civil engineering. And there was all kinds of examples how, the birth of the safety position, and civil engineering had a history in that. So
sure.
Yeah, so that's cool.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, you guys do a ton of trenching, excavation, and some confined space entry. Is that right?
Yeah, dealing with construction from the civil side, we're dealing with trenching for all the utilities. Pretty much anything in a pipe that we put in goes in the ground. So we're dealing with trenches there. Sometimes we can be in trenches 40 feet deep.
Whoa, that's big time.
Yeah, that's pretty deep. Manholes too. We've got some manholes that we've designed that are 40 plus feet deep. So
man.
Got some pretty deep stuff, and and then our guys also do a what's called a sanitary sewer evaluation study for cities.
Okay.
So we're going out and we're inspecting manholes and sewers and stuff. So those guys have to go down in those sometimes. So they're having to do the confined space entry on an active sewer then to do that investigation.
Do you guys just do jobs in Sioux City?
Oh no. We travel all over. We've got multiple offices here in Iowa. We've got offices in Kansas City. We've got offices in Missouri. So, we've got offices all over the place. So, and we'll travel outside of those office locations as well and do the work.
Have they ever found any Ninja Turtles in the sewers?
No.
Okay.
Have not ever found any Ninja
right,
Turtles.
So that's just a myth, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I was hoping they were real.
No.
But you're not in New York. I think they're in
Right.
New York. So
Yeah.
that must be the issue. You're too much in the Midwest for Ninja Turtles.
Few rats maybe, but.
And then, of course, there's all the urban legends about the alligators in the sewers. People getting them as pets and then flushing them. And,
oh, sure.
But no OSHA 300 log entries where a guy got leg bit off by alligator.
No, not that I'm aware of. I think we'd have to go a little farther south and east to get into the alligator country, I think.
I'm sure you would have heard about it if it happened.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, people don't realize all the bad stuff that's in sewers and wastewater. We just think about feces, and stuff like that. But, man, a lot of flammable liquids and vapors and flammable gases and toxic gases, and there's a lot of things washing down there that we don't always think about. And people flushing stuff, and then these plants who are, releasing into them. There's a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, when you start getting into that industrial waste, it can be pretty nasty stuff.
Yeah.
There's all the different products that they use or they're taking in, and once it starts mixing with other things in the sewers, and the time that it takes to get from point A to point B, it can come out of the solution and become a gas. So yeah, it can
Man.
get bad.
Yeah, and I know, some of the biggest hazards that, you know, a lot of people are worried about with the sewer entry is the hydrogen sulfide and the methane and stuff like that.
Right.
You heard of any other gases that you guys found down there, that was a pretty major concern for you?
I can't say gases. No, I mean, like you say, hydrogen sulfide and methane. Those are the two primary ones that we've ever come across.
Yeah, those are the bad ones, and they're bad enough because they're both flammable, and toxic to inhale, and
Right.
some of them are removing the oxygen, and
Mm-hmm.
so you got a double whammy there, So, you guys have you ever been on site when they're going in? Do they have to wear special gear to go in sewers?
Oh yeah. Yep. Our guys, when they go into the sewers, we're using the tripod, and those guys are wearing a harness, and they've got their multi-gas detector that they'll take with them.
Nice.
We'll do all that testing, and sometimes the sewers are bad enough that they actually have to put on their SCBA equipment.
Whoa.
So, we can't just not do it because we have a job to do. So those guys will put on the right equipment and go in and do what they need to do.
That's hardcore when you got to go to the SCBA, the self-contained breathing apparatus. That's what the firemen are wearing, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Do you got any cool gear? Because sometimes when I'm talking to some of these fire rescue guys, they got really fancy SCBAs, really long-lasting tanks, some mics built into their headpieces, stuff like that.
Yeah, the ones that our guys use, they do have some of them that have a mic in it so they can talk to the guy up above. Most of the time they have a large tank that's up top, and then they just have the hoses that go down with them, so that way they don't have to try to wear a tank going through this manhole cover. So.
Well, yeah, those supplied air respirators are cool because, you don't have the tank on you, but also they got a lot longer for air.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Some of them little bottles are only good for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and if you're breathing heavy, coming up and down ladders, carrying equipment, you can suck those down fast, especially if you get scared and start panicking down there. If you see a rat or something, yeah, you could literally suck some, more air than used to. Have you ever heard of any cool stories from the sewers, stuff that they found, and anything, of exciting or value, or is it just gross?
I know when I worked with the city, there were some guys that said that they had found some jewels one time.
Oh, cool.
Down in a sewer.
Nice.
That evidently got flushed down there or fell off somebody's hand and down the sink or whatever,
I mean, I suppose a wedding rings
Yeah.
and rings would be kind of common.
Yep, so they found stuff like that. I don't think our guys from McClure have ever found anything really.
They just did
Neat.
report it because they wanted to pawn it, right?
That might be, yeah, they keep that to themselves,
If you find a bag of gold, you're probably not going to tell your boss.
Yeah, you're going to keep that secret.
That's cool.
I know there has been times where they've had to hurry out of a manhole because all of a sudden it started to fill up.
Oh, with liquid.
Yeah.
Was it just a plant pouring into it from a washout, or was it a rainstorm?
It was a coming from an industrial facility. That when that facility dumps, it comes in through a force main, so it's coming in a lot faster than what the gravity can take it out. So the manholes start to fill up on them, and they're hustling to try to get up out of there before they get
that would
engulfed.
be scary. Yeah, that would be really scary. Now, besides that, I was reading that you guys do a lot of crazy stuff. I see you guys get involved in bridge work and aviation and surveying and transportation and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, we've got a pretty all-encompassing company. We handle a lot of things.
Traffic engineering. Some of the stuff I don't even know what it is. Geotechnical engineering.
Yep, that's where they're dealing with the soils and stuff like that, and stability of the soils and things like that.
Stability of soil, yeah.
Yep.
Compaction and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then graphic information systems. I see GIS all the time, but I don't really know much about it.
Yeah, it's the systems that municipalities use to keep track of their infrastructure.
Okay.
So, it shows where their water lines are at and valves and manholes and sewer lines and all that kind of stuff.
That's cool. So a lot of technical stuff besides, trenching, excavation, and
Yep.
And then, do you guys like when you're in sewers? Are you like installing like sensors or just taking air samples? What are you doing in there?
We could be doing sensors. We could be installing some sampling units. A lot of times it's flow meters.
Okay.
Because we're checking to see what the flows are, and especially if we're doing an I&I inspection, which is inflow and infiltration. If we're trying to see if there's rainwater and stuff getting into the sanitary system, because we don't want to be treating that stuff. It's expensive to do that. So we'll put in flow meters at different places in the city and see if when there's a rain event, if that flow comes up or stays about the same. And
Okay, that makes sense. So, sanitary sewer or wastewater is different than stormwater?
yes,
They don't all run together?
well, some cities they do, but it's required now that anything new, they have to be separate. So because your wastewater, that's all stuff that goes down your sewers in your house, that all has to be treated and before it can go out to a waterway. Where stormwater, the stuff that runs off the street, rainwater stuff, that doesn't have to be treated so before it goes to the river. So
I see a lot of, I don't know what they are, little medallions like in the concrete by some of those, where it's all filtered. It's like, don't dump in here. This goes to the river.
right, yep.
So is it literally a straight shot, like to some kind of stream or river?
Pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean it's going to travel through a network of pipes, but that's where it's headed. There's no place where it goes off in the middle. It follows a pipe and right down to the lowest point to a waterway.
So if I had to be in one, I'd want to be in stormwater, not in sanitary sewer.
That would be much better if you were going to be in one. Yeah.
It still could be hazardous, because it's flushing all the stuff off the street and gas and oil. But as a whole, it sounds a lot more clean of water than the sanitary sewer stuff.
Correct. Yeah, but like you said, it can be hazardous atmosphere as well. Especially if it's a sewer that collects a lot of organic material and it sets in there for a while. As that organic material starts to break down, it starts to become hydrogen sulfide and methane. It'll put off those gases as well. So just because it's a storm sewer doesn't mean it's 100% safe. It's better than a sanitary, but
yeah. Now, we all watch too much TV and movies, but sometimes you see on the movies they got these sewers or stormwater systems that they're like so huge you could like drive a car in, Or,
oh yeah.
Have you seen some really tall, wide diameter ones?
Oh yeah, we've got some here in Sioux City that
Really?
are 12-foot square. So I mean, it's 12 foot wide, 12 foot tall. They're pretty good sized.
We need to go skateboard in them, right?
Oh, you could, yeah.
Go all the way around.
Yeah,
you see
these
that
are
too.
square, so that may
Oh,
be
yeah.
a little hard, but
Yeah, that wouldn't work. That wouldn't last that long.
no.
You ever heard of the? I'm not from Sioux City, but when I moved out here, I heard about the urban legend of the Mole Man. Have you ever heard of that?
Man. No, I haven't. No.
I don't know. It's just I thought maybe you'd run into him if you're doing a lot of trenching excavation in this area.
No, I have not run into that guy.
I have seen a lot of groundhogs in this area, though.
Yes.
And they are troublesome rodents, man.
They are.
Do you ever get them messing with anything, causing issues, or?
The only time that I've really seen them as being an issue is along riverbanks, where there's dikes and stuff that have been built, to contain the river inside of.
Okay.
Sometimes those groundhogs will get in there and they'll actually burrow into that dike, and that weakens it. So it's a point where water can start flowing through and it'll wash it away, and then you no longer have your flood protection.
That's bad.
Yes, real bad.
So we've had a few floods in Siouxland. I
Mhm.
remember, I think, 08 or 09 and 14, I think.
11 was the big one.
11 was the big one.
Yep.
And then I remember driving, getting on the interstate, going down to Hamilton to 29, and can't get on there because that's completely underwater, was that a busy time for you guys? Or did you have to do anything special during that time?
Yeah, it was really busy. Like I said, that was when I worked for the city, and it was we had to go down and we had to seal all those manholes up that were down through that area, all the sanitary manholes and storm manholes. We had to try to seal things up so that they didn't come off, in the floodwaters, and then fill up our systems. And we had to put some plugs in to try to seal off the pipes so that it didn't come back on the other side of the city where we didn't want the water to be. And so
Man.
it was a lot of work getting that all set up and protected. And then once the water went down, then we had to go back through and clean everything up and reestablish all these things that got damaged during the flood. So it was a lot of work.
I remember that. I don't know what you call it. We call it a wash back where I grew up, but it's kind of by where the old KD station was. That
The channel there.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. Not full, but it was always kind of empty. Maybe just like a stream trickling through there. But during that time, I'd go walk and look at it because I used to work right down in that area, and there was like, I don't know, half full.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was because that river was so high that it filled that thing all the way back up. And
Yeah, tributaries were flooding because they were backfilling up the tributaries.
Yep.
Yeah. And right next to us, literally right over there, Prairie Creek, I saw that rage. The last flood we had when Nebraska pretty much got wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking through this window. There's a window right on the other side of our podcast fort. And that thing was raging, and there was huge chunks of ice flowing through there. I remember because we had a lot of snow and then like a huge warm-up, I think, was some of the things that came together.
Yep.
And just boom, that was a big deal. And some of those things happen pretty fast. There's not a lot of warning.
Yeah, and especially with those types of events, the water level, I mean, it'll come up in a matter of hours. Because it's not a very big tributary, but there's a lot of water that flows into it. And like you said, with the ice and stuff, then it caused jams and kind of made a dam of sorts. So then the water just backed up. And then once that broke loose, it was just a raging river coming through there.
And then I was looking at some of your material, and it says that your company does bridge stuff. And I know bridge work can pretty dangerous working over water. What would you guys do for bridges?
When they're working on the bridge deck and stuff, everything has to be protected so the guys can't fall off. So there's going to have to be some type of a barrier rail on both sides put up so the people can't fall off. And most time our guys don't go out on the bridge deck unless they've got a secured access out there. We make the contractor get all that done first before our guys will go out there. But if our guys have to go out there, then they're going to have to follow the same safety rules and being tied off and have that fall protection. And if it's over a waterway, they might have to wear a life jacket. If it's a possibility to fall in. So, yeah.
I remember a couple floods back out at the power plants, because they're right on the river.
Right.
And so there was life jackets were mandatories when you were on certain sides, when you were on the berms. And,
Yep.
It was pretty serious,
Yep.
All right, cool, man. Well, the other thing I want to talk to you today about was trenching and excavation. And you were saying earlier, I mean, there's no way you could do utility without that. I mean, we haven't figured out a way just to, magically make pipes appear in the ground, right?
No. I mean, trenchless is close, but it's not magic.
We got like, different boring techniques and stuff, but
right.
I still haven't seen where, they're just like Star Trek just phase in a pipe, in the ground.
No.
And, man, that always intrigued me, teaching a lot of trenching and excavation and soil analysis and, the competent person courses. It's always cool when I get to go on site and see some of these. And you were talking about 40 feet deep. Now, to a lot of people, they're like, oh, that's nothing. No, it is. I mean, 40 feet deep in the dirt.
Yeah, it's pretty significant. When we have something that deep, I mean, our excavation, really the total excavation ends up being like 100 feet wide.
Wow.
By the time that because they'll use a trench box down in the bottom, just for the first 10 feet or so. But then from that point up, they have to start benching things out and sloping it. And so, I mean, by the time you get to the top, it can be 100 feet wide.
I mean, that makes sense, and that sounds safe, too.
Right, that's really the only safe way to do it.
Because if it's going to be 100 foot wide, I'm not so much worried about it coming down on me in the center of it, by the time that wall comes down.
Right. Yeah, you pretty much get anything over 20 feet deep, and they've got to do all that benching and sloping because beyond that level, it takes some special engineered materials and shoring equipment and stuff like that in order to handle those kinds of pressures.
Now, I'm pretty familiar with benching and sloping and shielding, like trench box stuff.
Right.
I haven't got to work with a whole bunch of shoring where, You know, you got aluminum, hydraulic, or timber, and it's like spaced so many feet apart, and it's like bracing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I always thought that was kind of weird. You know, I like a shield. I feel okay in a trench box. It's a whole wall of steel.
Right, right.
But shoring where you got like, gaps in between, it's kind of weird that even works, but it does. I guess the science backs that up,
Oh yeah, yeah. They're just as safe and secure as a trench box, but there is a little more thought that has to go into it because I mean you're the one that's deciding where you're putting them and how far apart. And yeah, there's materials that come with those that tell you they need to be spaced no more than this far apart, and so there is some technical information that comes with it, so you don't have to just guess. But they do work in situations where a trench shield won't work.
Yeah, I mean trench boxes, as cool as they are, they're a pain.
Yeah,
they're heavy. I mean, you're getting them in on a big flatbed. You need a big piece of equipment to put them in.
Yep.
They're not user friendly.
Yeah, and if you've got other utilities that cross over, that go perpendicular to the trench that you're digging, sometimes you can't get your box in where you need it to get, and trying to move around it. So that's where that other types of shoring come in handy, where you can do in smaller pieces and kind of put it together.
When I teach trenching and excavation, I have a common joke in every class how I'm going to start my own soil analysis business. I'm going to charge $1,000 per test.
Ooh.
It's a joke.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do the visual test. That's $1,000.
Ooh. Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, you can make that work. Looking
at the soil, my visual test. And then I'm going to do all 5 manual tests, and I'm going to charge $1,000, I'm going to bust out my pocket penetrometer, my torr vein shear. I'm going to do the plasticity test, the thumb penetration test. I'm going to do them all, $1,000 per one. And the sedimentation test, I'm going to charge $2,000 for that, because that's going to take me an hour.
Right.
Because I need a mason jar and some water, and I got to shake it up, and I got to set it down, and then I got to come back an hour and look how it all settled out so I can determine my soil class. But
right.
I think I'd probably get some people to pay me.
You might.
Soil analysis sounds fancy until you realize I'm just picking up a clod of dirt and trying to stick my thumb in it.
Right.
$1,000 for that. Hey, I'm trained professional. I had to go to school to learn how to stick my thumb into dirt. Well, what's this plasticity test? Well, that one is very technical. I had to grab some dirt and roll it into a ball, and then I had to try to make an 1/8-inch ribbon by 2 inches and see if I could do that. And if I couldn't do that, then it's not $1,000 for that. You're just playing in the mud. Well, yes, but I'm a professional.
I'm trained professional.
Yeah, and I would have it all itemized out, and I wouldn't do anything in front of the customer, though, because then they'd see how easy it is.
Right.
I'd get a sample and say, I got to take this back to my lab to perform the tests. But then I'd just drive around the corner in the back of my truck, put the tailgate down. That'd be my lab.
Sounds like a good gig.
Yeah, so I just haven't started the business around yet, Maybe one day I'll. Siouxland Soil Analysis.
There you go. That sounds good.
Yeah, you guys would be my first customer.
All right. We'll keep you on the list.
Yeah, let me bid it. I'll give you guys a deal. I'll take $200 off per test. But you guys got, I know you guys are doing soil analysis because that's, part to determine the soil when you're trenching excavation. But a lot of the people that I work with around here, they don't. They just say everything's C.
Right.
And then they actually treat everything as C because then it's the safest way possible. But, that don't always work when you don't have, say, the footprint, the physical space to actually slope something back to what C requires.
Yep.
And so then I'd probably want to do a soil analysis and see if I can get away with a slope or a B slope,
Yeah, we had a similar situation like that where we just did a job in 2020 that we didn't have the space to be able to do that, and we were 18 feet deep, putting in a 16-inch storm sewer.
Wow!
And we had groundwater down in the bottom.
Oh no!
So we used the big shield box. Plus, I also had to drive steel plates down on the outside of it.
Whoa.
To go all the way down below where they were installing, because the walls wanted to just run in underneath that shield box because of the groundwater.
Oh, crazy.
So
That
yeah.
doesn't sound fun.
No, it was a lot of work. That was a long process.
Yeah. Now, trenching this time of year, that's got to kind of suck, huh? I mean, any outdoor work is kind of terrible, but
Yeah, when it gets cold like this.
is there like what's a frost layer around here? I mean, is it like so many feet?
Well,
4
it
feet,
can
5
go up
feet?
to 5 feet. I'm going to say that the worst we saw was I think it was the winter of 2011, 2012. We didn't have hardly any snow. Got super cold for a long time. We had water lines freezing all over town. The frost was over 5 feet in the ground.
Man.
That was the worst I've ever seen it. But typically, in a normal winter, 4 feet, pretty common.
Now, as far as the excavators go, is it just digging like normal in the winter, or can you tell it's slower and
Oh yeah,
harder?
Yeah, it's a lot slower. Frost does not dig out very nice. It's hard, similar to concrete, but it doesn't break apart like concrete. It kind of sticks together. So, when you're trying to remove it, it's a real pain. It takes a pretty strong machine, and then when you do take it out, it just rips great big chunks out. And
Man.
so, I mean, it's real hard to get a decent trench out of it until you get below the frost line.
Just coming out in big old clumps.
Yeah.
Like sod, just like ripping out big old pieces.
Yep.
Man, that sounds tough. Yeah, and then, being in them in these temps, that's never fun. I think today it was negative when I got up, then I got to 0. I think we got up to 14 today, though.
Is that what we got up to? Yeah, I know it wasn't supposed to get very warm today.
I shouldn't complain about this winter. It's been pretty nice, but still, working outside, I just never enjoy it. It's kind of dangerous. There was some utility stuff going on by my house today. I was coming to work. Actually, when I was going home late last night, they were out there, and they were there when I was going to work today. So I think they had some kind of water main break.
Probably a water main break, yeah.
Probably got houses without water, and they've been probably working hard, all night so folks could take a shower. And, people, the average person could give props to, paramedics, nurses, right? Doctors, cops, firemen, EMS. They're like, man, thank you guys for what you do. You have a hard job. Thank you, But not a lot of people realize what utility is doing.
Right.
Do you like hot water? Do you like showers? Do you like cooking with water?
Yeah. Do you like it when the water goes away when you flush your toilet?
Yes. I mean, that's big deal stuff.
Right.
And it's just totally taken for granted, People might look down on, someone who does trenching and excavation, as, not someone contributing like they are and getting all fancy because they do paperwork at a desk. And it's like, all right, let's see who's essential when there's no water.
Right. Yeah.
It's essential for our physical health, too, having that sanitary sewer,
Absolutely. I mean, that was the development of treated water and sanitary sewer systems. That's one of the biggest things that came about to help public health.
Yeah. I mean, reading about New York, back in the day when, it was just a cesspool in some of the neighborhoods with all the feces everywhere. Even myself, I seen that when I was in Pakistan. I was in Pakistan, there was no plumbing. So, you know what a bedpan is?
Oh,
Old
yeah.
school bedpan?
Yep.
They would pop a hole in the bedpan and run a pipe to it. They'd cement that into the ground.
Sure.
So it's flush. And then, underneath that pipe runs just right outside their house into the gutter.
Yeah, I saw similar things when I was in Panama.
Man.
Out in the jungle areas and stuff. Yeah, those small little towns, it just ran in the gutter of the street because that's all they had.
Yeah, so I'm walking around, and then some motorcycle or some bike goes through that water and splashes it on you. And I'm like, oh, man. If anybody knows me, that's not something I'm into. I'm not enjoying that. And everyone's walking through it. I'm looking. There's just like a turd sitting over there. And it's like, oh, man, I can't wait to get back to America.
Yeah.
I encourage all the America haters out there to go to another country.
Right. Yeah, especially a country that's undeveloped like that,
Yeah. I mean, I said I was going to kiss the ground when I got back home. but I flew into Chicago.
Thought again about that, huh?
Yeah, and then I was like, I'm not kissing this ground. But I am very happy and thankful to be home, and I have a new appreciation for America and plumbing. I remember I went to this one bigger city in Pakistan because I was traveling all around the country preaching and stuff. But when I got to this one city, Lahore, this big city, they actually had a toilet.
Yes.
I was never so happy to see a toilet. Things we take for granted.
Right.
I mean, we all grew up with running water. We don't even really think about it not being there.
Yeah, even if you were on a well and a septic tank, you still had that fresh water coming into your house, and when you flushed the toilet, it went away.
Yeah. Man, so it's a big deal. So thank you for everything you've done for Sioux City and Siouxland and keeping all that going. And sounds like you got a long history. Sounds like you're doing it with the city, and now you're doing it for McClure Engineering and keeping it going. And it sounds like McClure works for municipalities too.
Oh, yeah.
So you're probably still helping the city.
Yep, for sure.
And then other cities, sounds because you guys said you're in other states and all kinds of stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, we help cities from size of 1,500 people up to hundreds of thousands of people. So.
Wow. Now, we were talking about trenching excavation, and I heard that in Sioux City, we have a very unique soil type. I was told this type of soil we have, this lush soil, is mainly found here in some other place in China.
Right.
I heard somebody else say, no, it's in this area too, in this area too. But the main things I've heard was like Sioux City and China.
Right.
And I heard, I don't know if it's true, I haven't researched it too in depth, but I've heard that when glaciers came through here, they dug down deep to the granite bedrock and kind of made granite dust, and then that dust was like blown into the hills and formed these hills, and that's like what our soil is, something like that.
Yeah, it's some kind of a ground up soil, like you said. It's pretty fine and really dusty. It gets dry. It's just like powder, but you add water to it, and it's like sugar, and it just disappears. So
it's weird.
Yeah, it's really strange soil.
I've seen it act like cement before too. In certain conditions, just like hard. Like a clay.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. I've seen it get really powdery. And if there's some looser stuff on something more solid, that water gets it and it's like gone. It's a weird soil type, but I thought that was interesting. Anybody into soil, from Siouxland, we got some very unique soil out here. Now, I was born in Denver. I didn't grow up there though. I grew up in Southern California, but I did move back to Denver and finish college out there. And one of the cool things was right on I-70 before you go into Denver. They have this place that a lot of geological students will study because, like, when the mountains were being formed, like some of the layers got kicked up sideways, and you could just see all the different layers.
Oh, sure.
And I don't know how many, I would kind of like to go on one of your digs where you're digging 40 feet and see if there's, oh, look, that's A, that's B, oh, that's volcanic ash, from 1,000 years, it'd be kind of cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is kind of interesting in some of the locations where we dig down, and you can definitely see the different soil types, and, because it changes in color and changes in consistency, and sometimes you'll hit a dry pocket, and sometimes you might find a sand pocket, and, yeah, oh, yeah. We've got a lot of strange soils here through Sioux City.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And I'm told, I don't know how much about Sioux City proper, but, I've heard there was a lot of dinosaur discoveries in South Dakota, which is right across the river from us.
Yep, South Dakota. There's quite a few over in Nebraska.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Maybe one day you're going to find one.
Yeah, you never know.
If you're digging,
we find bones all the time, so
really?
You never know we assume they're just old animals, but yeah, who knows? Maybe it might be prehistoric and don't know it.
You're throwing away T-Rex bones, man. Yeah, just miscellaneous single bones, or are you finding
Well, you might find a
skeletons?
jawbone or something like that,
Right,
and
yeah.
maybe a leg bone or something,
Yeah.
something that's fair size, but never looks prehistoric, but
Yeah, it's probably just a cow, huh?
yeah, a cow or a horse or something, yeah.
Yeah, somebody's horse from, 100 years ago.
Yeah, Sioux City's been here a long time.
Yeah, Rivertown, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so And a lot of floods too. I mean, it's been a minute, but the Sioux City Museum has some pretty good exhibits on some of our super bad floods. Not even the one we were talking about, like
Right.
the old ones.
Right, yeah, the ones before the river changed and stuff. You bet.
Yeah, they said like we were on par to be like with Chicago, or I forget. We were going to be like a big thing.
Yep, yeah, yeah. Sioux City was called Little Chicago at one time, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, boom, I think it was the Floyd River, like 57. I can't remember, but
yeah, the Floyd flooded in the 50s, and so did the Missouri, both of them.
Just wiped out this little river town, and then we were set back. We weren't cool anymore.
Yeah.
We were kind of devastated.
Yeah, took a lot of rebuilding.
But those type of things really displace and bury and, do things like that. I had a friend tell me one time I need to take my kids. Oh, man, I forget where it is now, but they found a boat that was coming up to Sioux City but sank. And it had all kinds of, stuff in it.
Right.
And a farmer found it in the middle of his field. Yeah, now it's a museum. And,
I haven't heard that.
Yeah, I think it was a keel boat. It was some kind of boat but the river had changed course so many times, no one was looking for this boat where it was.
Oh, sure.
But the river had changed course, and now it's this guy's field, and he was digging in his field, and he found it. And it still had, like, gold and ammunition and furniture and, like, pretty preserved because of the...
Because it was all sealed up in that silt and stuff.
Yeah, kind of air, is the enemy of freshness. But, yeah, it was kind of sealed up with all the dirt and silt. And so, yeah, it's a museum now. But that kind of stuff, Indiana Jones and buried treasure and stuff, that's kind of fascinating. And maybe you guys will find something cool,
You never know.
If you're digging 40 feet deep and 100 foot wide, how long do you think it was the longest one you guys have done?
Oh, well, I mean, the total length of that segment of sewer was, I would say over 1,000 feet.
Whoa. So
it was a long process to put that one in.
Yeah. And our soil is pretty good for farming, obviously.
Right.
We're in the breadbasket. So I know a lot of times people are jealous. We're entrenching excavation, gets some good black dirt. People buy that. They want that.
Oh, yeah.
Do you see a lot of that around here?
Sometimes we'll get into a section where there's a lot of really good black dirt, but that doesn't happen too often. A lot of times it's the brown clays and silty soils and stuff that doesn't grow things very well, and but it does happen once in a while.
Well, let's talk about some of the scary side of trenching. Dun dun dun. Have you ever seen a trench collapse?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Like present or just went there afterwards?
I was present when it happened.
Wow. You mind telling that story? You don't have to tell names or companies.
No.
It was yesterday.
Yeah, no.
Don't tell OSHA. No, just kidding.
No. Several years ago, I was dealing with a water main break location, so the grounds was kind of wet, from the water break and stuff like that. The guys were down in there kind of getting things prepped to try to start fixing this pipe, and all of a sudden I started to see the wall crack, and I said, "Get out of the way." And
it just cracked, like you saw a fissure developing?
Yep, a fissure development on the side, and it collapsed over, and thank God he had enough ability to be able to get out of the way, because otherwise it have crushed him.
Man, because soil's heavy.
Yes.
I keep threatening my students. I haven't done it yet. I've been lazy. I've heard about these pictures where the guy gets buried to his chest and his head's out, but all the weight of the soil pressing on him has kind of oozed his insides out of his eyes and ears, nose and mouth, like the pressure.
It can. You bet.
That sounds like horror movie stuff.
Yeah.
Like I just imagining that picture that's supposedly floating out there and on the interweb. It just in my mind it's a terrible, horrible horror movie level, nasty photo.
Yeah, and the thing is that people think about that. I'll be able to get my head above and I'll be okay. Well, like you said, not really, because all that weight's going to be pushing on you, and the minute you exhale, you can't inhale again because there's too much weight against you. So, I mean, you basically are going to suffocate with your head out of the dirt.
Which is crazy, and people don't understand that could happen. Another thing that I have a hard time making people realize is you could suffocate or die from bad air in an open trench, and like
Certainly.
yeah, but they're like, how is that air bad? It's outside. I'm like, well, some gases are heavier than air, and they might settle in your trench.
Yep.
And you jump in there, and your head's still above, grade or the cut, and you're thinking, oh, this is good, and then you bend down to get something, you're dead.
Yeah. And digging some of these trenches that are deep and stuff like that, you can find, these decaying organics. They're going to start putting off gases, the minute you open them up to the air. And, maybe there's a chemical or something that got buried in there years ago, and you dug it open, and now it's active, and, that gas can knock you out because it gets, like you say, it's heavier in air, it's trapped in there, and yeah, it definitely can happen.
Those are two good points, because I always, when I'm thinking of bad air in a trench, I'm thinking of like you're digging a trench and you're right by, I don't know, a plant that has some chemicals, and there's a release, and that chemical is heavier than air, and so as it's blowing across the ground, it settles in your trench, and now your trench is filled with this chemical with zero air. That's what I always think of.
Sure.
But I like the points that you made, that we were talking about someone's dead horse. It could have been some dead, it could have been some poisoned groundhogs. Yeah. Those things are huge, and it's buried, so no one noticed it, but all of a sudden you're digging in there, and you kind of scooped into that pocket. There's a reason why we bury things deep,
right?
Because there's gases and all kinds of gross stuff. And so if that carcass were to release some of those gases in there, and they were heavier than air, so they didn't leave but push the oxygen out, and it doesn't even have to be a dead animal. It could be, organic material, like leaves and stuff to just degrade and create gases. But then the other thing you said was the buried chemicals, and that's not a treasure you want to find.
No.
And that's something I train people for when we do the HasWapper.
Sure.
Yeah, because, man, you buy a field and you start working, and then you dig, and then that next scoop, all of a sudden you hear a clunk, and some green gases come out, or purple, or whatever else, Hollywood tells us that toxic gas vapors look like.
Yeah.
I haven't seen green or purple yet, but on TV they're always green and purple.
Right.
The most dangerous ones I've seen around here are white, anhydrous ammonia, and they look like smoke. But anyway, we'll go with Hollywood. So you're digging, and all of a sudden green gas comes out, and you've already made so much of a trench. You wouldn't want to jump in that thing.
No.
That sounds scary. Now, I think the OSHA requirement is if there is a possibility of a hazardous atmosphere, you even got to test the air before you go in it.
Correct.
And I know a lot of people aren't doing that. They're just, because, again, they don't think there's no power. That's stupid. Why would I test the air? But
right.
Seems pretty important.
Yeah, they don't think that it's necessary.
There's some plants around here that treat all trenches like confined spaces.
Mm-hmm.
I get a lot of contractors come through here and need a confined space entry certification just so they could do trenching at a plant.
Sure. If it's a chemical plant, you bet. I could see that being necessary.
A lot of similarities. I would like to go through your equipment too. I'm a safety nerd, obviously, and you mentioned you guys got a tripod.
Yep.
And you probably got a self-retracting lanyard with a rescue capability on
we
it.
do.
And
yep.
Probably even have maybe a man winch.
Yep, we do.
And I always get corrected when I say this, but a boat swaying chair.
A boat swaying chair.
Just the chair you sit on.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, what do you call it? Chair?
Yeah, just chair.
In the OSHA regs, it's like BOATWSAIN. So, but people always pronounce it different. I never say it right to anybody. I just say it now. I don't care. I just say it with authority. Boat swaying. You got a boat swaying chair, but in 2021, I heard the record got broke for the fastest time someone died hanging in a harness. It was 12 minutes. Now it's down to 10 minutes.
Wow.
So, not that you would lower someone down 40 feet, but, I can imagine someone just being hooked to the harness lower down, and that would be hard on the body. But
Yeah.
you sit them in the chair, you lower them down, and now
Right.
don't have all that stress.
Yeah. Thankfully, we typically don't have to use that for our in and out. You know, we'll come up with a different method. Usually, put a ladder in, so that way the guys don't have to worry about that aspect of it.
Do you got to put ladders in a lot, or there's a lot of fixed ladders, or is it hit and miss?
It's kind of hit and miss. You know, you get into a lot of the older ones, and the ladders that are there are not safe. So then we have to.
Ooh, that's scary.
You know, we have to put a ladder in it, and
It's all rusted and corroded.
yeah,
and
yeah. The
not
hydrogen
even-
sulfide ate up all the metal, and
Man, so that's something to think about. If you pop that manhole, and I think popping the manhole too is probably a hazard in and of itself. Those are heavy, aren't they?
yeah, they're about 120 pounds.
Yeah, that's heavy. And then, so say you do that ergonomically, or two-person, or you got the right tool and you're not injured, but then you need a good flashlight to check all of those rungs where they're cemented in and
Right.
see if they're still good. Now, I even like the ladders I've seen a lot in utilities. They're like a fixed ladder, but they're like narrower.
Right.
Those are cool.
Yeah, yeah. They're designed for that small of a space to the guys be able to use.
Yeah, and I like those, doing so many confined space entries and helping out customers with their confined space entry needs. Trying to move a clunky normal extension ladder around, I mean, sometimes you're just not even getting them in the space.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to even get them in, and then once you've got that in there, then the guy's got to try to get his body in between that and get through the manhole. And if it's a 24-inch manhole cover, I don't know about you, but I can't fit through a 24-inch
Right.
manhole cover and the ladder at the same time.
Well, for sure, because that's going to go like kind of through the center of it, and it's going to cut that hole in half.
Right.
Yeah, but those narrow ones are really cool. I really like them for confined space entry. And they're an extension ladder too, so it's a single frame a lot, straight ladder.
Right.
Because I've seen people put A-frames in different confined spaces and lean them and use them, and I'm like, that's not right,
Right.
And they're like, oh, come on, you're going to mess with us about that. We're doing this really high-risk thing, and you care how our ladder's set up. I was like, well, you kind of called me in to tell you these things.
Right.
And,
Right.
if OSHA were here right now, you are not using that ladder properly. You ought to get a ladder that's made for this,
Right.
So I think everybody that does confined space entries should get some of those ladders that are made for those small spaces and just slip on and in.
Yeah.
I have to review that ladder regs, though, because I know there is some minimum widths on ladders for access, but, you don't always have that, width. But
Right.
I wonder if those are still compliant, just maybe the smallest ones possible.
Yeah. They are. They're still OSHA compliant, but yeah, they're the smallest that they can be. I want to say that they're like 12 or 14 inches. I think it's like a 12-inch rung, and then it's like 14 inches to the outside or something like that.
Yeah,
so.
that makes sense. Yeah, that's nice. So I imagine you guys got some 4-gas meters too.
Yep.
And then you mentioned earlier that you send a guy in with one on him.
Yes.
And that's my favorite, continuous monitoring. I always tell my class, and when I'm doing them, I said, if I'm the entrant, I could care less what that guy's meter says 50 feet from me at the hole.
Right.
If he's like, your air's good, I'm like, I don't believe you.
Yeah. I want to know it's good right where I'm at. Thank you.
Yeah, you're not monitoring my air. You're monitoring your air. Your air is good.
Right.
My air could be terrible. But when I got it on me and it's always running, I feel way good because as soon as I hear a beep, I am out of there.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, but the guy way far from me, his may never beep when mine's beeping.
Yeah, I mean, it could be just a little pocket of bad air where you're at. You bet.
Yeah. And so, what I have folks do, I say, the law says you have to do periodic monitoring. But best practice is do continuous monitoring. Keep that thing running all the time. And then, whatever interval you guys decide, every 15 minutes, look at your meter and yell your results back to the guy at the, your hole watch so he could document it on your permit.
Right.
But leave the thing on. Make sure you got a full battery.
Mm-hmm.
Just leave it on running.
Yeah, much safer.
What else you guys got for cool equipment?
Oh, gosh,
You mentioned supply to respirators.
right, yeah.
Do they ever have to wear kinds with cartridges on them, or don't even mess with those?
We typically don't even mess with them.
Right.
We make sure that the guys all get fitted for their masks, so they've got, that they can utilize one of those full face masks that we have, and just use the SCBA. That way you don't have to worry about, well, what kind of herb I got, what kind of filters do I need to have, and
yeah, for real.
you know,
Firefighters don't mess with those air purifying respirators
no,
just for that reason. They got a house burning. There's no way they could tell which filter, or cartridge they need for what's burning in there.
right,
You could guess, but that's all it is. But bring your own air to the party. That's what you guys are doing.
right.
Yeah.
And that way you don't have to worry about if it's oxygen deficient too. 'Cause, I mean, I don't care what kind of filters you have. If there's not
Right.
enough oxygen in there in the first place, it's not going to matter.
And that could be, that's very probable, especially in a sanitary sewer
Right.
where oxygen is pushed away by some of those heavier than air gases.
Correct.
All right, well, let's do some more horror stories. Now, just have you ever heard of a confined space issue, just ever in your history?
Not with the company I work with, and thankfully not when I worked with the city. But I did hear of a couple individuals that died in the sanitary sewer in a neighboring city over in, I believe it was in North Sioux. They were plumbers,
Yeah.
sewer guys that went in trying to open up a drain line coming from one of the industrial facilities, and the guys didn't follow the right procedures, and first guy went down and he passed out, and first thing his buddy did was he was going to go in and help him, and they both ended up perishing in that deal.
Yeah, that was a terrible deal many years ago, and it's just bad all around. Obviously, the families are devastated, but the company, besides the OSHA hit, the morale hit, and the reputation hit. It's just a bad deal.
Right.
And if we were to get all the documents, like the incident reports, we could probably just pinpoint the exact rule that they broke, that had they had followed, they'd probably both be alive.
Right.
One of them is that the attendant's not allowed to perform rescue.
Correct.
I mean, it's like a pretty hard, it can be done, but like they also have to be trained at rescue. They happen to have to have another attendant who's trained to relieve them. And then they also have to have their rescue gear sitting there. I mean, that's just not going to happen.
Right.
So, but I guess 60% of all confined space deaths are from those wannabe rescuers, and that makes sense to me. I actually want to do an obstacle course.
Oh, sure.
Confined space attendant rescue, which is illegal.
Yeah.
Where the attendant does a rescue.
Right.
But I want to set up an obstacle course, like in my training. I want a 250-pound weighted dummy with no harness on.
Yep.
And I'd be like, all right, so here's the obstacle course. First mission. He's 50 feet from you. Hold your breath. Go in the door, because he's 50 feet away from that door. Pretend that door is the hatch. Go get him. 250-pound dummy. He's not moving. Get him outside of this room. Go in 50 feet, hold your breath, grab him, drag him 50 feet back, and then take a breath.
I don't think you can do it.
I don't know how many people could. Maybe some of these guys that win American Ninja Warrior or those, those crazy obstacle courses, but they get to breathe in those. Though.
Right. Yeah.
Because people tell me that, I'm just going to hold my breath. I'm not going to let my buddy die. I'm going to hold my breath. They're just not thinking it through. When you're exerting that much physical exertion, you got to breathe. I mean,
plus the adrenaline going on. I mean,
it makes it worse.
There's no way. I mean, I've had to do pull top rescue training before.
Okay.
Where you got a guy that went up on a utility pole and died for whatever reason up on the pole or passed out, and you have to go up there and get him down.
That'd be tough.
Tell you, when you put somebody that's 250 pounds, it's unbelievable what kind of weight you're actually dealing with when they're in that state.
Well, yeah, and that sounds really difficult, and then it also is difficult in that sanitary sewer environment. That would be the next obstacle. Say they passed that one, my first one.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're gonna climb down a ladder holding your breath.
Yeah.
You're gonna walk 20 feet. You're gonna pick up this 250-pound dummy. You're gonna drag him to the base of that ladder, and then you by yourself are going to get this limp 250-pound dummy that's not assisting you at all, just like a dead unconscious person, dead or unconscious person. And now you got to climb up that ladder with a 250-pound, non-rigid thing and try to shove it through that hole without breathing.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think they could do it with breathing. I mean, there's some people who could, really put it, fireman's carry and one hand. There's probably a couple people that could do that, but I don't know anybody that could pull that off without breathing.
Right. Not to mention the fact that, those ladders aren't designed to hold 500 pounds.
Well, there you go. Yeah, especially, like we talked about, if it was a degraded old one.
Right.
And, and then those little ones, those narrow ones we talked about, probably don't have a 500-pound weight rating.
Right.
And, let's face it, a lot of Americans right now on the job are over 200 pounds.
Correct.
I'm sitting at 200 right now.
Yeah.
So it's just, man, it's just not going to happen. So people say, what do I do? Just let them die? No, follow the rules. Then you're not in that situation.
Right.
I tell people, don't put me in that situation where I got to listen to you die or choose to die myself. Like, don't put me in that situation. We're just going to hook you up. So if you die, I'm just going to sit down and go kick, 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 and I'm going to wench you out. That's what we're going to do on the jobs that I'm a part of.
Yeah, and hopefully there's nothing in the way that the law stops you from being able to get him out. And
hopefully they followed the plan and maneuvered a way that we could drag them out.
Right.
Because that's an issue too.
Yeah. And the other big thing that I've seen from different locations is having that rescue plan where they have, if you're not certified and have the equipment to do rescue, what is your plan?
Right.
One of the plans that we set up was we communicated with the local fire department, make sure that they were trained and qualified to do rescue in those situations.
Yep.
And then inform them where we're going to be, when we're going to be there, so that way in case something happens, they're already prepped and ready to go if they get a call to location X, that they know what they're coming to.
Yeah, and that's about the best you could do when you don't have internal rescue.
Right.
Because to me, I think internal rescue is the best when you have your own team or a paid team, third party, and they're just sitting there waiting.
Right.
And if something happened, they're just Johnny on the spot, trained, got the gear, ready to go. But second best to that is having that, trained fire rescue team on standby.
Yep.
And that has issues all in itself, though, just
Sure.
because of time getting there.
Right, yes, especially, some of the locations that we might go is a small town that has a volunteer department. They may or may not be trained to do that, so you might have to coordinate with a town that's 25, 30 miles away that has the equipment and the capability. It can be challenging.
That happened to me. I had to help out a company, and they got confined space certified, but they didn't want to get confined space rescue certified. They didn't want that extra training. They didn't want that extra equipment. They said, we're just going to rely on the fire department. I said, well, OSHA says just what you said. I said, you got to evaluate them to see if they are even, for lack of a better term, worthy.
Yeah.
And so I called this small town in South Dakota. It took me like 2 days to get a hold of someone because I'm not going to call 911.
Right.
So I'm calling the non-emergency number. They're all farmers. It's all volunteer.
Right.
They're all out, working. They finally get back to me. I said, you guys do any confined space rescue training? No. Do you have any confined space rescue equipment? No. But don't worry, we'll go in and get them. That's what they tell me.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, thank you for your time. So I did. I went to the next town over. Same thing. Volunteer. Took days to get back to me. Don't do anything. Went to the next town. It was a bigger town. I thought I'd get lucky there. Nope, same story. I'm going down 90, and then I get to Sioux Falls, and then they're like, yeah, we have a confined space rescue division on standby 24 hours. They do this much hours of training a year. They have this equipment ready to go.
Right.
I was like, all right, what's your response time to this town? They're like an hour.
Yeah.
That's how far away I had to get a legit rescue one.
Yeah, and that wouldn't be rescue at that point.
No, definitely, for sure not. Not at 60 minutes. I mean, not even barely at 10 minutes,
Right.
The brain goes 6 to 10 minutes without oxygen. It's done, And if it does survive, they say, probably vegetable then. So
Right.
yeah, serious stuff, man. Well, we've hit our hour mark, Mr. Tim. And,
Oh, wow.
And I'm super thankful that you came on the show and talk about all this stuff. And next time you guys find gold or Ninja Turtles, make sure you come back on and tell us all about it. And anything cool you guys find, an old Barry Carr, maybe Jimmy Hoffa or something. Or if we were Little Chicago, you might find some dead gangsters. And
Yeah, you never know. Yeah. No, thanks for having me. It's been good.
All right, man. Well, for Mr. Tim Higgins, I'm Aaron Icino. Together today, we are the Evil Safety Dudes. Until next time, everybody, stay safe.